Yo, but what the fuck is a thumbs up? Yo, what is up? You have found We Like the Blazers. I am Brandon Goldner, and as always, right over there with a hat, with a beard, wearing an NBA hoodie, how apropos, it is Ryan Whitledge. Ryan, what is up, man?
I feel if we do a basketball podcast specifically related to a team or a sport, that I should probably wear some gear associated with that.
Does the Portland Marathon shirt count? Because it does say Portland on it.
No, just general athletics and does not count. So I try to either wear. Yay. So there's also.
We ran kind of close to the Moda Center.
How do we know that that's Portland, Oregon? How is it not Portland, Maine?
Because the skyline is very clearly Portland. It has all the neighborhoods of Portland, Oregon in there.
You mean the thing that we can't see because your mic's in the way?
Yeah, you know.
Anyways, I try to wear NBA related gear. Also, I'm a big hoodie guy. Like I will wear hoodies in the summer and just go sleeves rolled up and call that good. And so probably 90% of my hoodie collection is sports related, between either just general NBA, Blazers, Ducks, Patriots. I got a couple Seattle Mariners things. So
you're a hoodie guy. What is your opinion on onesies? I've been seeing these Instagram ads for these onesies, but it looks like a hoodie and sweatpants. And I'm just like, well, then why don't you just wear a hoodie and sweatpants? I don't quite understand it.
Can't do it. I'm not a sweatpants guy. I'm a sport short guy.
There we go. I can't imagine unzipping my entire outfit to take a poop. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, I'm a sport short guy. I have a couple like fleece pants for like if it gets really cold, but the wife has requested that I never wear those ugly son of a bitches ever again. Past
even
that,
around the house just to hang out? Like
no. And so there was a time where we were shopping here a couple weeks ago, and she was like, "Hey, there's some gray sweatpants over there. You should go look at those." So I now own a pair of gray sweatpants, and those are my lounging around pants. So
that's funny. I mean, it is. There has been a market uptick in the kind of like stylish, tailored sweatpants market, where it's like you can relax, but we need you to look kind of good. I guess I feel like they're Zoom pants. They're for when you're at work on Zoom, working from home, but you want to like pretend like you're actually well put together, but you're actually just lounging. So sure. Zoom pants. Good job.
I'm gonna pretend that I even know anything about that world as somebody who has.
It's a lot like this. It's basically what we're doing right here. Just do that for 8 hours. It's basically what it is. But that's not why
Shoot me now.
Actually, one more thing I have to mention too. It is getting so dark and it's really annoying. I bet that for people, if you're watching this on YouTube, you should totally follow us at We Like the Blazers on YouTube. That by the time we are done with this 45-ish minute episode, that like the windows behind me will be much darker and that my face will be much brighter. I mean, it's already looking kind of gloomy.
I love the fact that, we're maybe, I think when I drove to your place a little while ago, it was like 12 miles or something like that from my place to your place.
Not that far.
It looks like it's super bright, super sunny outside. I'm just going to rotate the camera right over there. It's like pitch black out my window. So like somehow you cross the river over into like, is this that classic meme where like you see everything that the sun touches that is yours? What about the dark places? We don't go there. Me in the Couve, am I in the dark places?
No, you're not. These windows in particular, there are no trees or anything. It's just so, and also I turn up the brightness on Zoom to make me look a little bit brighter because I don't have the best light in front of me. So it does look brighter than it actually is, but it's going to get darker by the time we're done with this episode. And maybe by the time we're done with this episode, Ryan, we will be getting some news about President of Basketball Operations, Neil Olshey, because we learned right after we recorded, like the day after, I feel like.
Golden rule of podcasting. News will break when you're done.
News will break when we're done. We were done. It did break. Chris Haynes, Yahoo Sports, also remember, very close with Damian Lillard. Also remember that he was in Portland for a while, I think with CSNB, Comcast Sports Northwest at that time before it turned to NBC.
Yeah, NBC Sports Northwest.
Portland ties, close with Dame, now with Yahoo. One of the most respected reporters in the NBA broke the news that the Blazers are investigating Neil Olshey for allegedly creating a toxic workplace with bullying and intimidation. So this news dropped on Friday, today being the following Thursday. Quote, employees alleging a toxic, hostile work environment where staff members have been subjected to intimidation, profanity-laced tirades, among other bullying tactics. And then a few days after that, Chris Haynes also reported that investigation, which is being run by Old Mulvaney and Myers, which is like a white shoe law firm who has experience running these kinds of investigations, that the investigation has been expanded, that it was expected to wrap up shortly, but now it could last a few weeks before a ruling on Olshey's future is determined, and it's extending its investigation to people who used to work for the team and people who currently work for the team. But let me pause. That's not even all. We have some more breaking news, but yeah, go for it.
I got three things real quick on that.
Okay.
Shock and surprise, Neil Olshey's an asshole.
Shocked.
If the firm is going to be investigating, if they want to investigate this fully, I feel as though they need to talk to all Portland local media about how Neil Olshey is an asshole, and maybe start questioning the entire Blazers fan base about how they feel about Neil Olshey being an asshole. If we're going to be all encompassing, and then, the
if
third
only
thing,
it were that he was just a jerk, if that's really all it was, if only, but continue.
I think, well, I mean,
we'll get to that in a second. What's your
third thing is just, this is, I mean, it was a Friday news dump, and I'm not going to lie. Like it was an eye roll for me, because I'm like, okay, he's an asshole. He's an asshole. He's an asshole. I just keep coming back to this, but it's all right. So they're investigating him for that. I'm not trying to.
I disagree fundamentally. That's not what they're investigating him for.
What's your take on it then?
I'll give you my take, but first we have
toxic workplace environment sounds like asshole to me.
There's a slice more breaking news, and then we can argue about it, which I can't wait to do with you. But we also had Dwight Jaynes, longtime Blazers reporter, now currently not with an outlet, but he said that he expects that there's going to be a Friday news dump. They may have some Neil Olshey news tomorrow being Friday. And then we just had Jason Quick was on the Locked On Blazers podcast with Mike Richmond, and Mike was asking him about this entire thing. And this dropped 30 minutes ago. And Quick said, quote, I can't recall any action like this from a franchise and someone keeping their job. Then he went on to say, quote, I'd be surprised if there wasn't action even before the investigation was complete. Richmond clarified with Jason Quick, does that mean that he'll either quit or be fired before the investigation is complete? And Jason Quick responded, yes. So as
way to cover all your bases.
Correct. Well, that's the latest and the greatest, and maybe something will break as we're recording right now. But
so with that breaking news, I threw out a tweet. I quote tweeted the Dwight Jaynes thing, and thank you for actually mentioning that he's not currently with an outlet, because he is getting, and we'll touch on this here in a little bit. He is getting a lot of backlash for why is he not doing more reporting, and with the belief that he is a Neil Olshey mouthpiece and yada 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 whatever. But yes, it is important to note that he's not doing more reporting because he's technically not required to. So he is at the moment no different than you or I in just spouting off random Twitter opinions. But I did quote tweet him. And with that bit of news, breaking news, that we should hear something tomorrow, I put out the betting lines on for when we will hear that news. And they are as follows. So at tip off of the game tomorrow, I set at 5-1. Okay. Halftime of the game tomorrow, that's your long shot odds, I have it 20-1. Anytime after 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2-1. Noon or sooner, 50-1.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. And I do want to discuss with you what we think this means, because we don't have all the information. We don't know what the investigation's uncovered so far. I will mention two other things though before you and I talk about it. That one, we did hear from former Blazers player Dan Dickau, who was in the Blazers coaching staff, wanted to get into their front office during the transition between Chad Buchanan and Neil Olshey back in 2012, had a bad experience with Olshey, talked about that on his podcast. And then we also heard from previous NBA assistant coach Barry Hecker, who went on John Canzano's show and talked about Olshey and Olshey's history of, quote, fear-based leadership with the Clippers. So here's where I'll start with, like, what does this mean? Because you mentioned before, Olshey's a jerk. He's an asshole. Well, yes, he is. But but that's not why he's getting investigated, in my view. And again, we don't have it in front of us. We don't have the results yet.
Yeah.
This is not about him being an asshole. This is about him, a person with power, a person who controls people's livelihoods and careers, using intimidation and fear and his position to make sure that people route information through him, that they don't cross him, that they don't speak ill of him, and that the consequence of that, if you were to do any of those things, is that you would lose your job. That's different from you being an asshole. That is messing with people's livelihoods, and I think that ultimately that's the crux of this investigation, is that people were in legit fear for their jobs and careers, and I don't think you can ignore that aspect of it. That's what I'm taking away from all of this in sum.
I'm gonna try to tiptoe this line here as much as I possibly can, because I'm not gonna try to come off as an apologist for Olshey. I mean, my
big
disdain,
Olshey apologist, Ryan Willage over here.
My disdain for him is long.
You've been banging the drum for Olshey since day one. I heard that you photoshopped his head onto a penny and says, "In Olshey, we trust." Oh no, that was me back in 2013.
That was you. No, I hold his coffee. I hold his coffee for him when I go on his jog around Lake Oswego with him.
There we go.
That's my role. No, for one, I agree with everything you said. But I boil it down to the simplicity of being an asshole and being an asshole boss. Where it's weird for me is because when I hear that stuff, I say, okay, that sounds like sports. That sounds like anybody in management in sports. That has been the long running way that things are operated. Now, but where I'm saying I'm trying to toe the line here is because just because something has been, and this has been a big topic of discussion in our society for the last 4 to 6 years, but just because that's the way that something's done doesn't mean that's the way that it needs to continue to be done. The goal is to improve upon things. So for one, am I shocked that that's how Neil runs his front office and his staff and how he wields his power? No, I'm not.
Nobody is surprised by that.
And would I be shocked to hear this coming out of any other organization, about any other GM? No, I would not. Or in any sports franchise. It's not shocking because it's accepted. But I'm glad that whoever was the one that ended up pulling the trigger on getting this investigation rolling is doing it, because there are important things that need to happen in our society and in these things where people in position of power do need to be held accountable and not just get a carte blanche to act however they want. And so I'm glad that this is coming to light. So this has probably been the way, and the Dan Dickow piece really laid into this of like, if this is how he's going to act when he starts and he's trying to impress people, I can only imagine like how it is 9 to 10 years later, so it's not shocking on the one hand, because that's how sports works. That's how the hierarchy of these things work in the business world and sports world, whatever. But again, I'm glad that it's coming to light and it's actually being addressed. As far as the investigation goes, I know a lot of people in, social media, whatever, want to make their jokes of why is Neil Olshey not fired yet? Why is he not fired yet? Well, I don't know if Blazer fans followed the news of the summer and what the Blazers' current track record is with doing investigations into things, but I'm fairly certain they want to take their time to knock this one out of the park.
And to be fair, it sounds like this one is independent in a way the investigation that they did into Billups wasn't. It's a different kind. Correct. It's a different kind of investigation as well.
Which, by the way, isn't it amazing how when an organization, and I threw out this tweet before, I'm going to take credit for it, but before more well-known
Big Star, you take credit for something. Big surprise, Ryan. Big surprise.
And more respected reporters put out the tinfoil hat theory. I timestamped some of it and I'm like, nope, I said it first. I put out tweet tinfoil hat. All of this is their way to look for cause. They want Olshey out and they need to make sure that they're I's are dotted and their T's are crossed and they're looking for cause. But on that note, isn't it amazing when it comes down to how can we save a few pennies, how much more willing an organization is to put time and effort into doing a proper investigation?
Wow. So I think that's a really interesting point. I'm still I don't think I'm all the way there with this is manufactured by ownership in order to get him out. Or that's not quite what you said. That's not quite what you said.
I don't think it's manufactured in any way, shape, or form. I think whatever allegations came to light are real. But I think that if there were starting to be questions about if they want to keep Olshey, if he's the guy, seeing how this season has started or whatever, or if attendance issues, because attendance has been down. I think they've announced they haven't had a sellout yet this year. I've been to the arena twice. Trust me, what their announced numbers are is not what's there. So if it's now affecting a pocketbook and they're looking at, what do we have to do? And they have this little file of Neil Olsheyisms that they can go back to. That's kind of what I'm talking about. I don't think it's manufactured in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. As we stand now, it sounds like, Dwight Jane said something. Jason Quick said something suggesting that we're going to know something fairly soon. Both of those dudes, for whatever you think of their work or whatever you think of them, they're pretty plugged in. And I think if they're both saying that it's not, they're not making that up. So I suspect we're going to hear something tomorrow. I suspect it's going to be Olshey is fired. At this point, it's pretty funny. Even a couple days ago, the people who were most invested in defending Neil Olshey at that point were, in my view, also invested in protecting what they thought was their God-given right to treat other people badly because they feel threatened by their actions actually having consequences. I tweeted that out at Golden PDX if you want to follow me.
Is there a parallel between anything else going on in the world and that? I don't know. Just something to think about. Never mind. Go ahead.
Well, and so at this point, though, I actually spent some time today. That was one day ago that I tweeted that even. Yeah. I spent 10 minutes today. I was trying to look for people who were supporting Olshey or wanted Olshey to stay or were saying nice things about Ryan. I couldn't find any. Even the people who have been the most staunch and, in my view, illogically over-enthusiastic Olshey supporters have now gotten to the point where this was a bridge too far for them.
Well, everyone saw the writing on the wall, and it goes back to that Dwight James thing that I was saying. If it's come to the point where they're launching an investigation, everyone's just assuming that he's out. They're looking for cause. And so you can't necessarily, if you want, regardless, you can't hitch your wagon to him at this point. And so you can't come out and defend him.
Well, I'm just saying, I think if this were a different fan base in a different city, you'd be hearing a lot more cancel culture bullshit from people saying this is a witch hunt against Olshey. You're not seeing any of that. I think kudos to Portland's fans and analysts that I'm going to take the good faith view that this isn't about, they see the writing on the wall, that they legitimately think that this is not acceptable. I would like to believe that's why people have now changed their mind about supporting Olshey. At any rate, nobody wants this guy there. Nobody supports him. Everyone wants him out. It would be how disappointed, how frustrated, how surprised would you be if we get the news tomorrow that Neil Olshey is undergoing mandatory anger management classes and he's not been fired? How pissed are you going to be if that ends up happening?
I don't know if pissed would necessarily be the right word. I'd be extremely disappointed. You
would be a little pissed? Okay. Pissing away Dame's prime here is a flawed roster construction.
We're not talking about that. I'm looking at it in the context of him, to go back to just my overall generalization of him being an asshole. I would not be pissed, but I would be extremely disappointed that for now, as public as this has become, as we've seen people disappear and not be Olshey defenders, as we've seen more and more people come out, the ones that are willing to, and I heard a different interview with Dan Dickow, I believe, on the radio the other day. He talked about that, there aren't a lot of people that are willing to come forward publicly because they'd still like careers in sports.
Of course. And it's hard to come forward and say this kind of stuff.
He's like, I have no interest in getting back into it. So I don't have the fear. I'm not trying to provide for my family and whatnot. So I'm more than willing to say my piece because my livelihood is dependent upon me being able to, or me talking out about this, and that's not even just relating to the Blazers organization as itself. That goes back to that's how sports works. If you come out as being this weird little for lack of a better term, a narc, like, does that affect you being able to get a job in a different market or whatever? But I wouldn't be pissed. I would not be pissed off. I would be slightly upset that the best chance and opportunity that has presented itself for the organization to just get rid of the guy and cut bait and bring somebody in that has fresh eyes and is, can work with Billups and is willing to not just be like, I drafted this guy, so he must stay. I would be mad that they let that opportunity slip through their fingers. But as far as if the investigation goes to that, he's not allowed to do this, he's not allowed to do that, he has to, take a step down in a job title, and he's got to go through anger management. I'd just be extremely disappointed.
Yeah. And I also, to correct myself or to clarify, what's more important here is not the basketball piece of this. It's how people's lives have been affected by it. People who are currently working on the team, if they are fearful for their job and cannot be their whole and best selves, can't be fully honest, can't speak out. That's what matters first and foremost. And yeah, like, investigations like this can provide a really important opportunity for people to tell the truth when they have been afraid to tell the truth. It's something that I personally in my career have had experience with. It's something that happens in sports. It happens in politics. It happens in large companies. So it's important that people, no matter where you work, you should feel okay expressing yourself and saying, this either makes me uncomfortable or I feel unsafe. By the way, like, the interview with that former Clippers assistant coach that was on Canzano, Barry Hecker, he mentioned, and look, like, say what you will about Elgin Baylor as a GM of the Clippers, again, from basketball side, maybe wasn't super successful in his tenure. But he said, he didn't micromanage you. Elgin Baylor did not look over your shoulder. He trusted you to do your job. He was empathetic. He was thoughtful. He was a good boss. And so, like, there are plenty of examples where in high pressure, high stakes organizations, you have people who treat people with respect and empathy, and that's important. It doesn't mean that you can't do a good job. It doesn't mean you can't even demand a lot of people. You can demand a lot of people. I think that's completely fair. You can demand a lot of your staff and say, these are my expectations. We need to meet these. That's fine. Just do it respectfully, do it with empathy. And if people feel afraid, that is best up. So, yeah.
And one of the big things, like, stuff that I think back on is, I've done freelance Blazer writing I started that 8 years ago or whatnot. I occasionally do it. I every now and then I'll message you.
Never do it for our site.
Well, I by the way, I wrote it up. I wrote that piece up. I hated it. I deleted it. So it's not. Why didn't you let me
see it? Whatever. That's a conversation for another day. That's fine.
But no, and then now podcasting for the last 4 or 5 years, and so I've had a chance to talk to a lot of people that have that regularly interact with Neil Olshey, and there are plenty of times where we have gotten people to sit down in a chair. Back when, at Blazer Tag, when we'd have people come in, they would literally drive up to Vancouver and come and sit in our little studio spot.
I remember.
And do a podcast. Yeah, you were famously drunk there once too. But drive up to the studio and there would be a thing, like, based off what kind of news narratives were going around. I'd ask the question, I'm like, what's off topic? And they would literally say, don't try to get anything out of us about Neil. We don't want to lose our jobs. And this is not just, 1 or 2 people. This is like, I don't have enough fingers and toes to count the people that I've talked to over the years that have told me such things. And I've reached out to a decent amount of them since all this stuff came out. And I've heard a lot of stories about a lot of different interactions and a lot of mistreatment and whatnot. And we're just, again, being a general asshole. And every single one of them ends with, but I'm not associating my name to this, because there's just that fear. But yeah, again, it's shocking. It's not shocking, but
so I'm going to actually plug this now, and I hope that he doesn't mind that I'm speaking on his behalf, but he did say it. We have been running, Seth, who is sheriff of PDX on Twitter, has been running these Twitter spaces 15 minutes after every Blazers game. You should check them out. I have been there often. Dia Miller of Blazers Edge has been there. Keith and Chris of the Trailcasters have been there. It's a great place to go. You can listen to conversation. You've
had Chris Haynes Haynes. You guys have had Sean Highkin. I mean,
Chris Haynes, Sean Highkin, Corbin Smith. We've had yesterday, the one we had last night, we had a former Major League Baseball player who was talking about leadership and how difficult it is to learn a new system. These are really, really cool. Plus, if you would like to share, you can also share your take. It's a cool place to get to talk to people. But the other day, Chris Burkhart, again, of the Trailcasters, he worked at NBC Sports Northwest for many years, for a long time.
Yeah.
And he shared his story about how he had tweeted a meme about the Blazers. It was a GIF of something exploding. And the next day, Neil Olshey had sent this angry tirade of an email to Chris's boss about, oh, I can't believe he blah, blah, blah. And so I asked Chris straight up. And so I'm going to just be really direct about this, that I wanted to know whether Chris himself felt like his job was in jeopardy because of Olshey. Now, Chris said emphatically no. Chris said, I never felt like Olshey threatened my job. He was just annoying. He was just a micromanager and it was annoying to deal with, but my boss has always had my back, which is awesome to hear. And by the way, I'll say this too.
There was a very famous precedent already set by that time, probably. And that was the Isaac Ropp with 1080 The Fan when Isaac Ropp was on Talking Ball and literally over a tweet while Isaac Ropp was on Talking Ball, of him being disparaging of the team, that cost Ropp his job at Talking Ball, which he was like, I was getting paid a very minuscule salary to do that. It did whatever. That also exploded the relationship between the Blazers and 1080 The Fan. They stopped running their TV, or they stopped running primetime on TV, and led to the Blazers having their relationship with over with iHeartRadio and 620 AM. One tweet from Ropp absolutely destroyed a relationship between two media members. Marcus Greaves, I believe he works for Coin 6 now. He may have moved on. He was of 1080 The Fan prior, but shortly after that, I think a year or two after that Ropp fallout from 1080 The Fan, he was at the Blazers practice facility for a training camp or something, and Olshey was there talking to somebody, and and Marcus Greaves was there with his 1080 The Fan mic. Like, you knew where he was from. They have the little mic wraparound. And apparently Olshey kept intentionally stepping back and stepping on Marcus's shoes, like some really nice, like, sneakers, just weird, petty shit like that. So,
yeah. So, I don't know. Like, I feel like we have wrung this lemon dry, although you did want to I will give you the option of pivoting into something that you wanted to talk about, perhaps.
I did, because it was a fun little healthy argument. There's very rarely any of those, but you are very adamant about, especially when this news broke, about that there were media members being silent, or that weren't giving their opinion, or weren't giving... if anybody was supposed to be able to see that, I have zero clue.
I'm trying to get the camera. It's not focusing on me. See how it's focusing on outside and not me? I'm trying to fix its focus. Oh. Yeah, I'm just a little blurry. Whatever. It's what it is.
All right. Well,
on audio, nobody would have noticed. It's fine. You're good.
Threw me off my focus. Well, you're just shoving something up in the camera. Anyways, that's how the behind the sausage,
buddy.
Behind the sausage. At least it's not a penis pic. That would have been awkward. But
oh my God,
I would have had to launch an investigation into you.
Wow. Yeah.
But no, just when this news broke of, like, you didn't necessarily seem happy with local media and their reaction to it, and I just kind of want to
know.
I don't know.
Some people know. Yeah, like, my point was this, and I defy you to disagree with what my point is. If you are known for giving your 2 cents, for giving your opinion, for opining about everything having to do with the Blazers, and it's the beat that you either cover or that you have covered in the past, and now all of a sudden, oh, that's interesting, you haven't said shit about it, you haven't said a damn thing, and people are asking you, why are you saying anything about this? You're like, well, I'm gonna wait until the investigation's over. Bullshit. Look, I'm just saying that as somebody who, I worked at a newspaper. I was the opinion editor at my community college. I respect journalism. I also do understand you can't burn every bridge. I get that there's a give and take with not flaming the organization if you cover the Blazers, but there were some people who were suspiciously quiet. And yeah, I called it out. And yeah, it's annoying. And no, I wasn't the only one doing it. But yeah, so that's my point. I defy you to disagree with that.
I don't disagree with
exactly. And next topic.
No. We'll see how you edit that. No, I don't. I don't disagree with the basic premise of that. If you're known to just lambast every single move, like per se,
or just talk about it, or literally talk about the biggest story of the franchise of the entire year so far, a multi-day national story, and you're silent.
See, now that's where I take a disagreement of your silence, because I saw almost every local reporter that I follow, local journalists, put out something, but they waited till they could put out something that was along their lines of reporting. Jason Quick is known to do human interest pieces. He did have, when he put out his piece, it was talking about his interactions and his human side of his interaction with Neil Olshey. Now, Jason Quick,
by the way, I disliked that piece the more I read it. By the way,
Jason Quick is notorious for he does not want himself in his articles. He wants to talk about others and get their human experiences in his pieces. So when he has to write a piece in which he's talking about his human experiences with an individual, it makes him feel awkward. But Aaron Fentress came out and wrote.
By the way, Jason Quick gets a pass, I think, in this situation, because he literally broke this story with Shams. That's when we first heard about it. So kudos to Jason Quick. He gets my credit for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Aaron French just came out with a very, matter of factly kind of story, or 2 or 3, I can't remember, that he put out. I'm trying to think.
They were press release recaps, and they were public quotes from the team and media availability. But the dude is talking about all sorts of Blazers topics. He loves arguing with people, and he always does it. And now he's just not talking about it. Okay, wow. So whatever. It's like I'm not holier than thou. I'm just pointing it out. It does annoy me. It's whatever. It's what it is.
It was funny. I was thinking. So one of the podcasts I listen to, I do listen to Pod Save America, and John Favreau started one of his new little series. It's called Offline, and it's kind of the basic premise of the series is kind of like how the internet has ruined absolutely fucking everything. And his most recent interview was with Peter Hamby, who currently, ironically, works for the news division of Snapchat, which it was actually news to me that Snapchat has a news division. but Peter Hamby's written a lot of pieces kind of like how journalism has been affected by different eras of the internet and whatnot, and how, newspapers used to be funded by their classified ads, and Craigslist killed that, because then people stopped paying money to advertise their couch that they're trying to offload for $100 on in a newspaper, and they just put it up for free on Craigslist. And how that medium shifts over to where now everything is revolving around that. If you're a journalist, and if you want to be a successful journalist, you need to be reactionary and drive traffic and put out, opinion tweets to drive people to your fact-based reporting and all that. And he actually touched on the fact that when that's not there, when journalists don't, that they are more abolished by society now than they've ever been, because people take that silence of giving an opinion that they expect as them like condoning a behavior, for lack of a better term.
So here's my comparison. I don't think this is about the internet at all. Imagine it were 1971 and you had a columnist who did a daily column on food, on restaurants. And there's a big restaurant that opens, it's a big brand new restaurant. Everyone's going to it, and there's so much buzz. And they're just not writing about the restaurant into day 1, day 2, day 3, and they're writing about all this other stuff. And they're just not writing about, why are you not writing about this one restaurant? That seems kind of odd. Like, if you have a history, if you are continuously offering your opinion about the team, about literally everything, including speculation, and then you're hiding behind, well, this is speculation so far, I'm going to wait. It's bullshit. Like, that's not okay. Like, I think it's okay to point that out, point out the difference. And I do think it's important to say that, to be like, look, if you are going to use your platform for however small it is, and you're talking about this stuff, and now suddenly this story that's critical of Neil Olshey comes up, and you're just not offering your 2 cents, I think that we have every right to ask why that is. And I would postulate that the answer is preservation of access, which is an important part of being a journalist. And I kind of understand it. And I know it's a tricky balance, but I also think it's fair to call it out.
There is one other aspect that I can point to, and that would be, and I have reached out to a couple of the, a lot.
Okay, Mr. Insider Baseball, Mr. Texty Fingers over here. Look, I don't have the inside connections you do. I'm not in the white collar, like Rose Garden parties with all these reporters you're hobnobbing with.
You do this for, hey, I cast a lot of lines over the last 6-7 years, and I'm not going to lie, you don't lose those numbers because it comes in handy every now and then. But, I reach out to a lot of them, and basically there were some that are like, hey, the public is demanding my head because I'm not giving an opinion on this. Well, I was all ready to give I was all ready to give my opinion, but not just to please them. So fuck it.
That's an insane take, and it's disingenuous. That's a disingenuous opinion. There's no way that's the reason why it is. Hey,
it was an answer I got more than once. It's something I will tell you.
So I'm not saying that you're making that up. I'm suggesting that the answer you got was disingenuous, because that's bullshit. Like, again, if you have a history of talking about stuff, you should talk about this. It's the biggest story of the year. That's all. And okay, let's name names, Ryan. Dwight James. All right, Dwight James, I am coming for you. He said, I'm not going to say anything until the investigation's over, basically. I don't know why he sounds like Batman all of a sudden, but so Dwight James is Batman, first of all, which I didn't know until today.
Ruins Batman for me.
Imagine Dwight James in that suit.
He looks a little more like the Penguin.
Did you see that Halloween costume? What was it? Robin Lopez and his partner. Robin Lopez was Batman. His partner was the Penguin, and she rocked the Penguin to the point where it was terrifyingly, frighteningly good.
My wife pointed that out to me. Yes.
Oh, it was great. Dwight James. I'm not going to talk about it. Okay. Oh, that's funny, Dwight. Like, yesterday you said, well, here's who I think they might look for in a GM, but they're not looking for a GM yet. And then today he sneaks in and he's like, well, I'm breaking my silence to say that there's going to be a news dump on Friday.
He said he's breaking his Twitter break. When has Dwight James ever taken a break from Twitter?
So it's just the writing is so here's my opinion. Brandon's opinion, not fact, not informed. I don't have texty fingers like Ryan over here. I'm not on the inside like he is. My opinion is that the writing's on the wall. The reason why you have people like Dwight James and Jason Quick talking about it is because the writing's on the wall. Olshey's probably going to be out, which is great. A couple of days ago, I was not optimistic that was going to happen. There's still a chance that he could stay, but I do think the writing's on the wall at this point, which is why Dwight is now talking about it. Like, that's my opinion. I could be wrong. Dwight James, come at me. I'm at Golden PDX. But like, I just, the main thing is like, if you're talking about the team and suddenly you're not, it's okay for people to ask why. That's totally fine.
All right. Well, I think on that note, let's take a break, strong pivot, come back, actually talk about some basketball.
Fine.
Sound good?
Fine. And we're back, I guess. Ryan had a skeleton there. If you follow me on Twitter at GoldenPDX, you can see a picture of said skeleton. What I said was that I melted Ryan with one of my hot takes. He's now a skeleton, kind of like Indiana Jones style. I forget which one it was, but not trying to compare you to a Nazi or anything, but it kind of looked like the skin had melted right off your body and you turned to a skeleton.
So I tried to steal the Holy Grail. Okay.
Those are the Nazis that were going after that, right? Am I getting that wrong?
Your 43-year movie reference is spot on.
I'm not even a huge Indiana Jones fan, so whatever. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't not like it. I just am not a huge fan. So
as long as we can all agree that the last one sucked, we're good.
I haven't seen it, so sure.
Don't. I won't. Under no circumstance.
Don't worry. You know what else sucks, Ryan? The Blazers on the road. Well, at least on the road. They are winless on the road. I believe they're one of a very small handful of teams who've not yet won a road game, one of two teams.
The Blazers and the Houston Rockets.
who they are playing tomorrow in Houston, and we hope that the Blazers win. But you just never know, do you? The Blazers are coming off a disappointing 109-119 loss to the Phoenix Suns, which was on the heels of a disappointing 109-117 loss to the Clippers. I watched the Suns game pretty intensely. I was particularly, this is probably the first game of the season that I was like doing that thing where you watch and then you go back and rewatch the play, and you kind of do that enough so by the time you get to the commercials, you can skip forward. Like, I was really trying to figure out what they were doing.
Yeah, and you were bringing the hot Magic Johnson takes last night.
You know what? So, okay, here's the deal with that. I used to do daily. Well, I did the recaps for Blazers Edge for at least one full season and part of another, I think. And I also used to run their Twitter account. So I used to live tweet every game, 82 games a season. And that's what I would do. I would try to get the flow of the game. And if you were to check in on Twitter, you could kind of see what was happening, which, by the way, people used to do that a lot more than they do now. Very few people. Casey Holdall kind of still does it, but there are very few people who are actually live tweeting the flow of the game, which I think could be useful if you're like doing something and you're checking Twitter. So maybe I'll do more of that. I don't know. But
see, the reason it died down is because there's so much of a disparity between how people are watching. Your cable feed, your streaming, your legal streaming feed, and your illegal streaming feed are off by a grand total, sometimes by about 2 minutes. So, like, if Casey has stated that he's tried to tone down a little bit of his live tweeting, kind of like of, those kind of things, or like last minute shot kind of stuff. Like, he'll hold it back like about 30 seconds because you get a lot more people that, especially before the Blazers made their switch, that we're seeing on YouTube TV. I had timed it out. It was 1 minute and 6 seconds that I was behind, quote unquote, live.
Like in the arena. Yeah, that makes sense.
No, not even like in the arena and cable are within like the 7 second delay or whatnot. So by the time somebody's typed out a tweet and hit send, you've seen the thing that they're talking about. But yeah, with YouTube TV, there was 1 minute and 7 second delay between the cable feed and the YouTube TV feed. There were people that were watching it on Hulu Live that it was even longer. So there has actually been a big push lately in sports to not necessarily be as on top of. Now, you, in your case, I believe your feed that you watch it through is the laggiest of feeds. So you're safe to do it. We all saw what you're talking about 4 minutes ago.
Yeah, I was a little rusty on the live tweeting. I was actually trying to be more commenting on a theme that was happening at the time rather than like in the moment. Although there was some like when Nas got a block. And anyway, the point was that I watched that game really deeply and I was trying to figure out what was happening. And I'm still optimistic on the whole. My optimism is slowly waning, and I think that that's fair. The Blazers now find themselves at 24th on defense, 5th on offense, according to Cleaning the Glass, which, by the way, that should sound pretty familiar to you. That was the whole problem with Coach Stotts. Like, they were top 5 offense and bottom 25 defense. That's basically where they are right now. And I know there's been a lot made. Let me ask about this. There's been a lot made about the disparity between how they play at home and how they play on the road. What do you take from that? Because I have a take on this. I have a hot take that will melt you right back into a skeleton, but like, they're playing so much better at home than on the road. What's your take on that?
I mean, part of it is a little bit of the home cooking or whatnot. There has been games where obviously now, this is first season in 2 years that players have been able to allow outside of their hotel room when they're traveling on the road. So, there's been a couple games where I've known, actually,
I guess you do that at your hotel room.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. Nurk's looked hungover like 1 or 2 times on some road games or whatnot, where you're seeing like a lack of energy. There is, we discussed last week on it's not necessarily the, how much do you want to buy into the Damian Lillard injury thing, but like when he came up on his driving layup the other night, who'd they play before the Suns? Why am I blanking on this? Clippers. In the Clippers game, when he came up and he was literally holding, like, that changed the rest of his game and whatnot. And you kind of saw a little bit lingering effects. But as I had said at the time when we recorded last week, that's something that he's had to manage his entire career. So resting him isn't necessarily the case. And we're kind of seeing that now. His numbers are getting back up. There's 3-point shooting still abysmal, but technically so is the entire team. I mean, at one point in time, they were 0 of 13 last night. So the one thing that I
at
do
the half, which is just terrible.
I think it was like 6.5 minutes left in the third quarter, and Norman Powell hit their first three or something like that.
Yeah,
but I don't know. There's something to the home crowd, the home cooking energy, the being able to sleep in your own bed, have your own routines and whatnot. And I am kind of curious if maybe there is a little bit of an aspect of that. You do get a little bit of freedom on the road, per se. And I, at the same point in time, it's like the entire league is now going through that change. So then technically you should see that kind of road dip with everybody. But there are teams that are undefeated on the road this year so far. So
I want to actually, you mentioned Damian Lillard. I want to talk about him and the fact that he needs to rest. But first, my hot take about the home and away. I think it's really as simple as like the games that they had at home that they got these major blowouts. The Blazers are playing different. Teams couldn't game plan for it because they have a new coach and they were playing differently. And they were catching teams a little bit by surprise. I think at this point, teams
AD had the shits on Saturday against the Lakers.
Also true. I think at this point, the Blazers they are not benefiting from catching people by surprise. People have a 12-game sample size where they can scout. But the Blazers themselves still have not learned these systems well enough to be comfortable with them. So you have this like diminished return on what they're trying to do, plus people know what they're doing. I think it's less about home and away, and I think it's more about like when the games have been played. That's my hot take.
Well, and there's the game plan. For one, this shouldn't be a new shock and surprise, but I think, I saw the picture on Twitter of Paul George when he's in the Clippers locker room, and you can see part of their whiteboard right behind him. And it literally just says, for like under the category of like weaknesses, attack, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Anthony Simons / bench,
Yep.
So I mean, that's your points of attack. And so like, but that book has been out forever. I think one of the things I both find it slightly comical and slightly worrisome is because all this offseason, everyone kept talking about when we're talking about Chauncey's coaching philosophy and what he's going to bring. And he's talking about his accountability and whatnot. It's that, well, accountability on the defensive end, Oh, we're not worried about the offense, not worried about the offense. I'm fucking worried about the offense now.
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't look great. Part of that is that Dame doesn't look great, and the Dame, I think, is not healthy, and I think he needs to rest. That's part of it. But part of it's that they're not comfortable, in my view. I mean, I put out a pretty big thread on Twitter. It went through basically what I'm trying to say in this thread is that the ideal offensive and defensive system in the hypothetical may not work for the people you have playing it based on what they enjoy doing, what they're used to doing, what they're able and willing to do. And I postulated that maybe what the Blazers were at their best under Coach Stotts was the team maximized for who they had around them, right? That like, as much as, I really agree in the hypothetical with how Chauncey Billups is approaching his offense and his defense, that maybe it just isn't going to work. Like maybe it is that they need more time, but maybe that's not it. Like, I think people should be prepared. Like this notion that the Blazers are just figuring it out and they will get better. Not necessarily. Maybe they won't. I think people should be prepared for that. I'm not saying that they're definitely not going to get better, but they might not. I think people should be prepared for that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It is kind of weird for as much as Chad Doing is always shit on the team for when they play crappy, how he has just taken a complete, well, I'm going to wait and see this year. Oh, it's a lot of changes. Well, there is something to that, but there is also something to the fact that this starting unit that the Blazers are running out now that has played the fourth most minutes together out of any team in the league is the same starting unit that did produce the fourth most efficient offense in the league last year. And so I do get that, yes, there is a little bit of feeling out, but for five guys that have played a bunch of minutes together over the course of the tail end of last season, post-trade deadline when Norm came in, there shouldn't be as much feeling out as where you're seeing errant passes of not knowing where somebody's going to be and not knowing where a guy likes a shot and not understanding a different player's tendencies and those kind of things. And seeing that is now worrisome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still firmly in the patience camp, but I am entertaining the thought that patience will not solve it. Like, I still think it's more likely than not. I'm still saying this. I'm still optimistic. I think it's more likely than not that they do need more time to figure this out, and that the way that they would like to play with more movement, not just having Dame pound the air out of the ball, defensively, that they're a little bit more nimble, that they rely more on communication and movement and mobility, that because in the abstract that makes sense, and because these players are committed and they want to win and they're athletic enough to do it, that it'll work out. I'm still hopeful that that's the case. However, maybe it's
hypothetical to you. So, like, say Norman Powell goes down with a left quad strain and he's questionable to play in the Houston game tomorrow. Who would you start in his place? Because that news just came out, so it's not a hypothetical.
Oh, Nance? Question mark? Covington at the 3, Nance at the 4.
What
would you do? Maybe they'll pull a Coach Stotts and jam Tony Snell in there. Remember how like Coach Stotts would just like jam?
That's actually what I was going to say. That's actually what I was going to say. Don't fuck with the bench unit. Nas has been playing great with the bench unit. Nas is the obvious person to get the bump up here, but I would keep Nas in the bench and I'd throw Tony Snell into the starting lineup. Why not? Let's see.
I just tweeted out to that news. I tweeted out Tony Snell time, baby.
Yeah, with the annoying 4 Ys on it.
1, 2, 3, 5. In fact, 5 Ys.
Even more annoying.
Okay. Damian Lillard, really quick. I think he's injured. Do you think he's injured? Do you think he should rest? We've already talked about this. Let's talk about it again because he looks even more injured now than he did before. He took fewer threes than Frank Kaminsky. He had a career night. Good for him.
Frank Kaminsky could not be stopped. Frank Kaminsky was the second coming of basketball Jesus. That was white Wilt Chamberlain. We got to witness greatness last night.
Unreal. Dame looked so good from the mid-range last night. But the problem was he was passing up threes that he would normally take. That's the problem with that.
And I applaud that. If his 3 is not falling right now, get points the way you can get points.
I would applaud it if it were mental, if it were a mental block he needs to work through. I don't applaud it if he needs to rest. If he literally the most important part of his game, he's not confident in, rest. Like that's, I mean, I don't know. That shouldn't even be a hot take. Like, you're sitting there smirking. Like I just
it's not because I know it's not going to happen, and I hate wasting my breath on it. And you convince Damian Lillard to take some games off, and
you're the one who probably has his phone number, not me.
I have his agents. Bro.
There you go. Look at you over here. So okay, all right. So we'll leave that aside. So the Blazers, yes, Norm Powell's not going to play or he's questionable. That sucks. They're playing Houston tomorrow. Then they play the Nuggets on Sunday. By the way, the Nuggets will be without Michael Porter Jr., who has, he was ultra super red flagged when he was drafted for back problems. He has a back problem now. That's not great. They also don't have Jamal Murray. Jokic will be back from his suspension, which, I mean, we're not going to really talk about it, but like both him and Morris should have been suspended forever. Like, as far as I'm concerned, like they're both dirty players, whatever. The Rockets
Did
tomorrow.
Either one of them take 8 steps off the bench though?
It's like, hey, I saw you coming off the bench, suspended, buddy. The Rockets tomorrow win. Well, I mean, with or without Norman Powell, the Blazers should win, right? I mean, they should, right? This Rockets team has -1 wins. Like I don't even know where they are. Like,
so I mean, Christian Wood. It depends on what kind of performance he gives. I would have thought that you would
have. Christian Wood, get it?
Yeah, or underperforming centers that Nurk could absolutely feast against them, but I have been proven wrong time and time again. So,
quick update: the Rockets have 1 win. They are 1-10. Ryan, 1 win.
We'll probably gift them their second one.
Oh my God. So we're going to get the fabled players only meeting if they lose this game tomorrow. I'm just saying.
Should have had the freaking players only meeting like a week ago to figure out.
They're 5-7. But
the Celtics pulled the trigger on a players only meeting a week ago and they've turned it around.
Tom Thibodeau benched his starters from midway through the third quarter. And then they made a comeback against the Bucks and then almost won. But then he didn't put the starters back in and the bench was gassed at that point. Anyway, Rockets tomorrow. The Rockets have won 1 game. The Blazers should win this game. The Blazers are not playing their best. They should still win. Even without Norman Powell, they should still win. Nuggets on Sunday. No Michael Porter Jr. That may be like a addition by subtraction thing because he's not been playing this well this year. Anyway, that's going to be a tough game. It's at altitude. I don't know how much that matters. They just need to win tomorrow. That's the thing. And then they come back home. Raptors on Monday. Bulls on Wednesday. That's me a loss. But
I will be at that Raptors game. I am taking my child. My son has an obsession. He has two teams he's a fan of. He is a fan of the Blazers and more specifically CJ McCollum. In fact, he wants me to reach out to CJ again and see if I can get us to get down on the court. Tempted to do that. His
birthday coming up or what?
Oh, my birthday. That's what happened the time that it happened before. Is that
I think he misinterpreted that as it was your son's birthday.
I am fully aware, and he did, and yeah. I corrected him when we chatted on the court afterwards, and I was like, "No, it was my birthday."
And he was like, "What did I do?"
He was like, "Well, crap, I wouldn't have given you tickets." I was like, "Ha ha 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 ha."
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah, but no, and then his other favorite team is the Raptors because he loves Jurassic Park. So he said it will be the best game I ever take him to because no matter what, his team wins.
And maybe CJ McCollum and Pascal Siakam will do a jersey swap at midcourt, and we'll get Siakam on the team, and all will be right with the world.
If that happens, I forever lose my son to being a Raptors fan. His favorite player will be on his other favorite team, and he will forever be a Raptors fan. And I don't know if I could save him.
That's pretty funny. I don't want to look too far ahead. They need to beat Houston. I mean, I don't like trap game because they need to win. Like that's all.
They're all trap games now.
They really are. All right. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to touch on? I want to give one more plug again. If you're on Twitter, hashtag Hoop Spaces. We're doing these Twitter Spaces. They're just audio rooms where we hang out 15 minutes after every game. We're trying to get Ryan. You need to go to one of these at some point. They're really fun. It's really good to hear from people, and it's been like respectful, awesome conversation we've had. Reporters
and you want me there?
You're fine. Come on. So that was I just wanted to plug that one more time because Seth, at Sheriff of PDX has been doing an incredible job hosting those. So thank you for doing that. Anything else you want to hit on before we bounce?
Got nothing. Let's bounce. I'm hungry. I gotta go cook dinner.
That's fair. I had this is very lazy of me, but for lunch I literally just had like a 10-ounce steak and nothing else. Just that. It's literally all I had. It was delicious.
Hey, the other day, I mean, because the job site I'm at, working down in the Vancouver waterfront, it's like a 5-minute drive for me to come back home for lunch. So the other day I came home from lunch and I had the adult grown-up lunch of Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Wow, that sounds pretty good, actually. Man, I can't buy cereal because I would just eat all of it. Okay, you go cook food. In the meantime, everybody come and follow us at Like the Blazers on Twitter. You can follow Ryan at The Witty Ryan. You can follow me at Golden PDX. You can also find us at WeLikeTheBlazers.com or on pretty much any podcatcher at this point, and also on YouTube at We Like the Blazers. Until next time, I appreciate you all. Thanks for joining us.
Do we have, I mean, it's a holiday and everybody else is doing it. Is there a subscriber count that we're trying to get to by a certain holiday? I feel so left out.
We're at like, on YouTube, we're at like 20. So let's get to 25. No,
25 by Christmas. Let's go.
Look, Ryan, we are not going to pay for fake subscriptions and fake downloads and fake views. We're just not going to do it. So we're going to build our growth organically. We actually still have to do that giveaway, which is kind of bribing people, but it's also helping a local business. We really need to do that. Like
great golf weather now too.
Well, here's the thing. It's not great golf weather, but it is almost Christmas gift time. So that part of it does make sense. So maybe we'll wait until, around your birthday or a little bit after. We like the Blazers. We like you. Thank you all for joining us. Appreciate you all. Until next time, I'm Brandon. That's Ryan, and go Blazers.
Go Blazers. Okay. Hey, by the way, bitch, you haven't responded to my birthday invite on Facebook yet. You son of a bitch.
I have not hit the stop record button. Okay, there you go.
Recording stopped.
Now I have.